rules regarding the minimum level of alcohol at fermentation, the amount of time in wood, which is minimum 2 years. And so I think the exciting thing about Montalcino is that we have 250 businesses on a hill, all interpreting a very strict recipe, and everybody coming out with different products. I mean, not just different labels and price points, but actually different wines. So people become fascinated by Montalcino because there's so much to find out. And even though it would apparently seem quite regulated, it is regulated. So if you're interested in doing some research at home, obviously you may have already heard of Brunello Gate.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. These things are always reported as if the world is at risk of being flooded with fake Brunello, but actually these are the moments where the D.O.C.G system is working. It means that people have been stopped.
I was impressed by the fact that it actually happened.
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen in France.
Yeah, but this was a defining moment for Montalcino, but certainly, there are a lot of controls in place, and it's not some kind of honor system. These are controls that are made up by people sitting in an office.
And who actually
how would I cheat?
Who enforces the Guardia Finanza, isn't it?
It's all sorts of people. The Guardia di Finanza, the Servizio Repressione Frodi, the Forestale, Valor Italia. There are about 5 different bodies that can come. But in the 5 years that it takes to make a Brunello, we might have between 7 and 15 controls, some of which we agree on. I say, I'm ready to bottle, please come and take a sample for lab analysis. But others, literally people just appear.
So you have really random checks.
Yeah. So,
and this is true for all 250?
Yep.
It must be quite busy.
And it's also just the beginning of this year, everything is now computerized, so they can pull data from the system and then come and see if your reality corresponds. So the main, because there's a lot of importance given to vintage, because each year is very different, the weather is different, there's this just amazing set of moving variables intersecting with human decisions, and the weather you get on your particular vineyard. Some vintages get very hyped. You probably heard of 2010, the so-called vintage of the millennium, because very modest here in Montalcino. But they're also, already the world is interested in 2015, even though it won't actually be available until 2020. So, obviously, for us, farmers, this is personally, I'd say this is quite a distressing set of affairs, because we're making something every year, and actually, to make a good wine in a challenging vintage is a real test for a producer. And in those years, you have to make a lot of hard decisions about sacrificing yield in the interest of quality. So you have less bottles that have cost you more, per bottle to make. And then the world says, without ever trying it, they say, we're waiting for 17, waiting for 60. So, but every vintage is given a star rating in the February following harvest. And what this creates is a lot of anticipation of the future 5-star years. And
out of curiosity, is that I know France and Bordeaux, you can buy years ahead of.
No, there's no real entrepreneur market, because I think really because the Italian tax system is not very fond of people being paid for things in advance. It's complicated.
Not even an option.
I've known of one estate that managed to do it. I've tried. It hasn't been obvious how to manage it from a tax point of view. So the other thing I'd like to just mention quickly is, Montalcino obviously has been completely transformed by the advent of the D.O.C.G. Who knew back in 1980 it was an unprecedented event? But in 1980, Montalcino was a deprived area. It was receiving tax relief. It was a rubbish place to turn 18. Young people had to go as far away as Florence to find work. That's how bad it was. My mother-in-law's still not over the injury of my sister-in-law having to go, move all that way, an hour and a half away in Florence. So, the first moment for Montalcino in the 80s, there was a kind of, Montalcino I think turned in a sort of Swiss bank. There was a moment of great foreign investment, and I'd say foreign, in the Montalcino sense of the word, so not from Montalcino, Milan or Amsterdam, equally foreign. And and then the next wave were local people sort of buying back into what was once theirs, and now we're again on the third wave, which would seem to be more foreign investment again.
A lot of American money.
No, it's not really, not at all. The most recent acquisition has been Garantita, which was bought by Belgian investors. Salicuti was bought by a German company. Poggio di Sotto was bought by an Italian company with a Swiss connection. No, not. I mean, with the exception of Bayona, which was bought by an American. It's not generally US dollars. There's a lot of Brazilian, Argentinian investors, and then a lot of rumour about Chinese money. But,
No
anyway,
Russians.
But the current state of affairs is that Montalcino is just over 5,000 inhabitants, and we have, I think, the last census was 58 nationalities on a population of 5,000. So it's from being a kind of genetically stagnant, rather off the beaten track, not on the way to anywhere. That the advent of the D.O.C.G has had, many positive effects. Not least on the gene pool, I would say. But the odd thing is that although vast amounts of money are circulating, the town council has been in deficit really for decades now. So they've just established just this year a very sort of small tax per bottle. I think it's 1 cent per bottle. To create a foundation to pay for local charities and so on, because when the D.O.C.G was set up, had that been embedded into the legislation from the start, Montalcino town would have had more direct benefit from the whole wine.
But obviously, to a certain extent, it's symbiotic. There should be some money. That the council needs some money to produce a credible centre.
No, and to repair the theatre or whatever.
Yes.
I agree. But there are also a lot of tax breaks for agriculture and just things that mean that even the money doesn't necessarily go into the town. It stays on the property. Let's say.
Goes into federal level.
So yes, I think I've covered all the things I wanted
Brilliant.
to say.